Hi guys. All right, today we're gonna go over a couple of stretches that are really common that most people know. Most people, if they want to stretch their legs or hips, they know how to do it and they'll do it. But the reason we're gonna talk about it is because I want to go over some of the more intricate, specific details to really make those stretches more efficient, more effective. Um, Maybe go over some of the ways that people might do them incorrectly, and if you have back problems, maybe show you specifics of how to do them without irritating your back if you do have back issues. So the two stretches that we're talking about are the hamstring stretch and the hip flexor stretch. So the hamstrings obviously are these big muscles in the back, and everyone knows, if you kind of like bend forward, you'll stretch them. If you sit in a chair and do something like this, you'll stretch them. Um, and then the other stretch is the hip flexor stretch, which stretches the muscles kind of in the front of the leg, which attach from the front of the leg to your pelvis and into some of it also into the front of your spine also. So those are the two stretches that we're going to go over and talk about how to make them better than what you might be doing. So the first one we're going to do is the hip flexor stretch. So Rudy, why don't you come in frame? So Rudy, you're going to go down on one knee. Yeah. Okay. So the hip flexors, again, they're basically the front of the thigh, and they attach to your hip bone, and some of them actually attach to the front of your spine. So with this tends to be an issue more with a lot of women than men who are, like, especially gymnasts, dancers, those kind of people that are very loose in their hips and their pelvis. Sometimes when I try to get them to stretch them, they don't always feel the stretch in the hip flexor. And the reason being is because, so Rudy, go ahead and go and just stretch your, go forward and stretch your hip flexors. Okay, so if you can see, you'll see the way that Rudy is stretching right now. His back has kind of arched a little bit. And the reason that happens is because the hip flexors connect to the front of the pelvis. So when you're trying to stretch it, it might actually pull your back into an arched position. So come back. So Rudy, instead what I want you to do, and in a lot of cases, Rudy might feel it himself because he's not super flexible, but a lot of people may not feel their hip flexor stretched. So what you want to do is, okay, Rudy, go ahead and just gently tighten your belly. And then now go ahead and do the stretch and tell me when you feel the hip flexor stretch. All right, so he already feels it. And you can see his back is a little bit more flat, a little bit more neutral, and he already feels the hip flexor stretch. Okay, come on back. Now, Rudy, without holding your stomach, just do it the first way, just let yourself go. And tell me when you feel the hip flexor stretch. Mm-hmm. And you'll see how much farther he had to go before he felt the hip flexor stretch. So to do it correctly, come on back, what you really want to do is you want to keep your back from arching, and then what you do that is you just gently pull in your belly, right? And then just go forward and just not let your back arch. And you'll get a hip flexor stretch much earlier in the motion than what you would normally do. Okay. The second way, come back. The second way people mess up or don't do it correctly where they don't feel it is because, so bring your other knee up. When they stretch your hip flexor, so go forward, they'll start bending their trunk, right? And so when they start bending their trunk, the point is to get the leg to go behind your trunk, relative to your trunk. So if you're bending your trunk, you're not really getting your leg to go backwards relative to your trunk. So Rudy, did you feel a stretch in the hip flexor at all? No. Yeah. So if that's the case that's preventing you from to stretch, you just have to stay upright. So go again, a little bit of belly, don't bend your trunk, stay upright, and you'll feel the hip flexor stretch. Okay? All right. So go and stand up, Rudy. Okay, and then once you have a seat right over here. Okay, so let's have your right leg out in the front. All right, hamstring stretch. So everyone knows kind of like if you just keep your knee straight, right, bend forward, right, you'll feel a stretch in the hamstring. Okay, so what a lot of people do is, come back up, when they're bending, go ahead and bend forward. They'll let their back kind of curve, right? And tell me when you feel a hamstring stretch. Right. Okay. So that's when he feels it, right? That's because he's letting his back do a lot of the motion and not his actual. Instead of bending through the hips and pelvis, he's bending through the low back and on up. So if you want to get a more efficient stretch, you want to keep a flat back. Okay, go ahead and bend forward and keep a flat back. and tell me when you feel a stretch. Okay, and he'll feel that stretch a lot sooner. Okay, so this is a good way of stretching your hamstring. The main reason I bring this up is because a lot of people, especially, so this is more an issue for guys who have tighter hamstrings. A lot of people like doing like both legs at the same time. And the reason that's not appropriate for a lot of people that are tight in their hamstrings is because, go ahead and sit on the floor. So a real common way of doing it is just people will just sit on the floor with both legs out, and then they'll try to stretch their hamstrings by going forward. Okay, and you'll see he's got to really curve his back to stretch his hamstrings. He'll still feel a stretch in his hamstrings, but the problem is a lot of people that have back issues, this is no good for your back, especially if you have like a herniated disc or something, because that kind of slouch position is really bad for your back. And so a lot of people that are tight in their hamstrings, they shouldn't even try and do it this way because they can't even get to this right angle, to this vertical position without having to have their back totally curved. So for most people, unless you're already really flexible on the hamstring, I don't like it when they do this version of a hamstring stretch. My favorite way is, come back up on the chair, is this one where you just take one leg out, okay, keep your back flat, and then just bend forward enough until you feel pull in the hamstring. Okay? All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you.